Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for March 24th through 30th. This week I read 2 books, I watched 2 shows, I watched 2 movies, and I listened to 2 books. The number of the day is 2! Most of these books I read for sequelathon, in which we were just reading sequels. Although one of them is the beginning of a series, so I guess that doesn't really count at all now, does it? First book I read this week was Small Steps by Sachar. This is the second in the Holes duology because I don't think there's any more books in the series. I had no idea that there was a follow-up to Holes until I did a video about Holes last year. Instead of following Stanley Yelnats, we were following Armpit, which is one of the guys who was on the crew with him at Camp Green Lake. Armpit and X-Ray live close to each other and are still buds, and Armpit is trying to just get through summer school so he can graduate on time and is working a job, and X-Ray has some schemes. We get a little bit of a dual perspective in this one between Armpit, who prefers to be called Theodore, but even in the text is called Armpit, so I just can't help but call him Armpit, and a teenage pop singer who is coming to town soon. I really liked this one, and certain elements of it escalated really quickly without me thinking that they were going to come up, so I really appreciate being kind of blindsided by that. We also had this wonderful side character, Ginny, who's Armpit's next-door neighbor, and I just adored everything about her. It was great to have some disability rep, it was great to have talks about racism, especially because I'm pretty sure this book was published in 2006, so Sachar, you were really on the ball with this one as well. So if you were looking for an older teen book that you didn't know you wanted in your life, this is the one. The next physical book I finished was An Artificial Night by Seanan McGuire. This is the 3rd in the October Day series. There's not too much I can tell you about it besides October is badass and I love her. October is half fae and half human, so she decided to live in the fae world, and she's basically a detective for the fae world and kind of a knight for one of the courts. So she does live in the human world, but spends a lot of her time in the fae world, which are kind of overlapping in San Francisco. I really don't want to give anything away about the plot of this book because so much happens. But rest assured, I absolutely loved this 3rd book in the series, and I'm going to continue reading the series, even though I seem to read them at the pace of about 1 book per year. So 2020, 4th book, I'm coming for you. On to what I watched this week. Of course you know that I watched Survivor Season 18 as well as staying current on 38. And obviously the big thing to talk about right now is Season 38 because something iconic happened. The whole Edge of Extinction thing finally came to fruition and the rules have changed drastically for this season. Essentially everybody so far who's been voted out and decided to stay on the Edge of Extinction were given the chance to fight their way back into the tribe. If you haven't seen the episode yet, I don't want to spoil it for you, but oh my goodness, talk to me in the comments about what is changing in terms of this Edge of Extinction thing and how the jury is going to work. I also watched the very first episode of Yuri on Ice, and oh my goodness, it's adorable. If you've been here for a while, you probably noticed that I don't really care for sports, but I love sports narratives, especially when they're really cute, and I'm pretty sure this one's gonna end up being queer. This is an anime about figure skating, and it just gives me life. On to the movies I watched this week, the first one being Stand By Me, and yes, this was the first time I had ever watched it. I actually tried to read the short story that it was based on recently and couldn't get through it, but that's because of some extra random crap that Stephen King had thrown in there, whereas watching it was way easier. Plus you get the benefit of tiny, tiny Will Wheaton. He is so young in this that if I didn't know that Will Wheaton was in this movie, I probably wouldn't have realized it was Will Wheaton. I have to say this is one of the better Stephen King adaptations. Obviously it still has its problems because it's set in the 50s, so it's not very progressive in certain things, especially being written in the 80s. But King does write preteen friendships really freaking well. At least friendships between boys. The other movie I watched this week was Captain Marvel. Yes, I finally got myself to the theater to see it. I was a little bit conflicted on the cold opening of it because you go right into the life that she's living, not knowing anything about her if you don't have any background in the comics. Which I do have some background in the comics. I at least read one of them last month to prepare myself. But ultimately I think I really liked this approach, and I really like that it took a while to get to Earth and what happened there and just the moment of what decade are we in? Loved it. Obviously seeing some Avengers alum and seeing how certain things came together that we've been wondering about for years. Enjoyed. Really excited for the next movie. On to the book that I read this week that is in a series but is not a sequel, The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Pretty much all I knew going into this is the premise of the first chapter, although nobody ever talks about Taryn in the first chapter, which is Weird. Anyway, there's a girl, Vivienne, whose mother is human and whose father is Fae, and then the mother ran back to the human world with her and had more children, which would be twins, Jude and Taryn. And then her husband shows up and takes them all back to the Fae world. Every time people talk about this, they always talk about Vivienne and Jude, but nobody ever mentions Taryn. Which, having read the book, I can sort of see why, but also Taryn is my best friend's name, so I just feel slighted on her behalf. I'm all here for humans living among Fae stories, absolutely adore. The only other thing I knew was that Mel, I think, might be trash for Cardan. I've heard her talk about Cardan many times, which made me assume certain things that ended up happening, although I don't see why they should. He's not my favorite human, obviously, because he's not actually human, for one. And yes, I can appreciate he has a tragic backstory, but also, that doesn't mean you can be a jerk to other people. So, it would be interesting to see where this goes in the other books when I get to them, but this wasn't something that I felt like I needed to know exactly what happened immediately after, and that's probably because I was in a weird headspace while listening to it, but I enjoyed it. I'm gonna continue. Eventually. The final book I listened to this week was Song of the Dead by Sarah Glenn Marsh. This is the second in the Reign of the Fallen duology, and this follows a bisexual necromancer, and need I say more? Again, obviously being the second in a series, I don't really want to tell you anything plot-wise because so many spoilers. This twists around so many times, and obviously even telling you like how it starts will be spoilers for the first book. I can say that I absolutely love the characters. I really felt for what they were going through emotion-wise, and if for some reason this duology is not on your radar, please pick it up. It is so good. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down in the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!